and just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. Myself, along with my wife, Amy, and another family, we co-own and run Homeschool Tracker. And we just absolutely just want to just spend a second just to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know that there's a lot of other things you could be doing on a Monday night. So we greatly appreciate you taking the time to jump on a webinar to learn a little bit more about Homeschool Tracker. I just want to take a second just to tell you a little bit about Homeschool Tracker and why we exist and what it is that we do. We really strive to just create great products that will help you be more successful in your homeschool. And along with that, it's not just so much creating the tools or the products, but it's also giving you the training and the knowledge and the support that you need to use those tools to be more effective in your homeschool. So that's really what things like tonight are all about. Training you, giving you the support so that you can use tools like Homeschool Tracker to be more successful in your homeschool. So again, just thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. I just want to spend a second to go over what we're going to be talking about. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about where to find help, because as you may have noticed, Homeschool Tracker is a really deep and feature-rich program. So there may be times when you have questions or you just want to find out a little bit more information. I'm going to show you where you can find help. We're going to spend a little bit of time taking a tour of the interface of Homeschool Tracker so you can learn a little bit of the ins and outs. We're going to talk about subjects and courses and the difference between the two. And then we're going to dive into assignments, which are really the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. And then we'll talk about lesson plans, which are a really great time-saving feature with Homeschool Tracker. We'll spend some time talking about reports. And we'll also talk about workflows. And by workflows, we mean basically, if you have all these tools within Homeschool Tracker, that's great. And if you know how to use them, that's even better. But it's really about how you use them on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis. And there are many different ways you can use them. So we'll talk about a few of those. We'll go over those as we are covering these other topics, but then we'll circle back and kind of talk about workflows on their own as well. And then we'll spend some time at the end in Q&A. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to submit those via the Q&A widget there on your viewer, and we'll spend some time at the end of the webinar to answer any and all questions that may come in. We're scheduled to go for about an hour, and that gives us some time at the end to answer questions. And also, we are recording this webinar, so we will certainly email each and every one of you that has registered with a link to the recording when it's available. Okay, so let's jump in here and talk about where to find help. So the first place I'd like to point you is the Getting Started tutorial videos. So if I just open up a new browser here and go to help.homeschooltracker.com, this is our main help center. And right here at the top is our Getting Started video guide. It's 11 parts, and each piece is anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, but you can actually watch the whole thing in about 30 minutes. And it covers a lot of actually what we're going to talk about tonight. But if at any point, if you wanted to jump into any one of these different topics, this is a great resource because you can just jump in there and in 3 to 5 minutes, get a quick overview of those particular areas of the program. Additionally, I would point you to our new training center where we have replays of training sessions just like this, as well as our calendar of upcoming events. So if you go to homeschooltracker.com/training webinars, you can see the upcoming training events. And then you can also find all the replays of prior events, including other Getting Started training sessions that we've done, as well as a lesson planning session that we did just last week. That was a really great time where we dove deep into lesson planning within Homeschool Tracker. So that's a great follow-up session after you experience this Getting Started session. Diving deep into lesson plans can certainly be helpful. So I definitely recommend checking that one out if you get a chance. Okay, so in addition to the videos that we have in the training sessions, we also have extensive help documentation. So again, back here on help.homeschooltracker.com, this is our reference guide, and it's got everything in it. One thing I will say is that since it is a reference guide, one of the tricks I like to tell people is that from any page within Homeschool Tracker, so here I am in Homeschool Tracker, let's just go to the calendar view here. From any page within Homeschool Tracker, if I just click on this help link up here in the corner, it'll take me directly to the help page that corresponds with the page that I was viewing. So you can see it jumped right to the Help Center and the Agenda Calendar view. And so this page here has anything and everything you could ever want to know about the Agenda Calendar view. And it also links off to other pages if they're relevant. So that's a great way if you're ever stuck or if you have questions about a particular area, just click on that help link and it'll take you straight to the corresponding page in the Help Center. Additionally, you can always search here. So I could search for anything really and jump straight to the page that corresponds with that search. Or you could always browse the index here for any keyword of what it is that you're looking for. So these help documents have tons of information. And so definitely spend some time taking a look at that if you have any questions at all. Okay, and then the last thing is email. So we respond to each and every email that we receive within 1 to 2 business days. My wife, Amy, you may have even emailed her in the past. She is monitoring that email box all the time. And so feel free to email us with any questions you might have, support@homeschooltracker.com. And again, we can help with questions about the program or about workflows or anything really. So feel free to email us if you have any questions. If you can't find your answer in the help documentation or if we didn't cover it in a video, feel free to just shoot us an email and we're more than happy to help you. Okay, so let's take a few minutes just to talk about the interface in Homeschool Tracker and where you can find certain things. So let me just close a few of these windows here. Okay, so when you initially log into Homeschool Tracker, you'll be presented with this menu here. And it's broken up into several different areas. So up here on the top left is the schedules and planning area. And that's where the agenda is, both in calendar view and list view. Additionally, this is where you'll find your lesson plans if you're using lesson plans, as well as the shared lesson plan library. Below that is the students section. And this is where the master student list is. This is where you can set grade levels for your students. You can see a grading overview, which gives you an overview of all the grades that they've received over a period of time. The lesson plans and presets page, which we'll cover a little bit later, as well as the transcript supplemental page, which is where you can add additional information that would then be added onto your transcript. In the middle, these are all your reports. And so any one of these reports, if you click on one, you'll be able to generate a PDF file of that particular report that you could then print out, you could save, you could email, and they're really there just for you. And everything from attendance reports to the daily task list, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to transcripts and report cards. Those are all right here in the middle. Then over here on the top right, this is the Manage Lists section of the menu. And this is what I like to refer to as more of a maintenance area of the program. So for example, your subjects and your courses are here. That's where you'll basically add those subjects and courses to essentially a list, which then you'll reference within an assignment in the agenda. So you'll spend some time here in the Manage Lists, but if you think about it more of as a maintenance area of the program, I think that's a better way to imagine what you'll be doing in this section. So additionally, the library is here. This is where you would enter in resources in your library that you might use in an assignment in your homeschool. Names of lesson plans, they all exist here in the Manage Lists section. And then finally, at the bottom right is the Your Account section. This is where you can set the program options, which is where you can turn on and off different optional fields. You can set your school profile, and you can see your subscription and users. And that's where you can extend your subscription, change your password, email, and add or create student accounts, all in that section. So that's just a quick overview of the menu and of where you can find different things within Homeschool Tracker. Okay, so I mentioned we're going to talk a little bit about subjects and courses. And so it's really important to understand the distinction between the two within Homeschool Tracker, because subjects are really broad areas of study, things like math, language arts, history, or science. And generally within a Homeschool Tracker account, you're probably only going to have anywhere between 4 and 10 subjects. Courses, however, are much more specific areas of study, and they belong to a specific subject. So, for example, Algebra 2 would be the name of a course, and that would essentially belong to the subject of math. Composition 1, for example, would belong to the subject of language arts. or physical science 1 would belong to the subject of science. And so you could have, like I said, anywhere between 4 and 10 subjects, but you might have hundreds of courses over the course of your homeschool career, essentially. And these could be called anything like we saw here, or they could be even more specific, like freshman English or Dave's freshman English or something like that. So let's take a quick look at what this looks like within Homeschool Tracker. If I go over here to the Manage List section of the menu and click on Subjects, you'll see all the subjects that I have here in my account. And as you can see, the names of these are really broad, right? History, language arts, math, science, social studies. And there's not really a lot to do on this page. So for example, if I double click on one of these, you'll see that history just has a few options here. I can set the status as a core or elective, and I can make it active or inactive, but not much else. So like I said, subjects are really broad, and there's not much you can really do with a subject, because essentially you're creating these broad areas of study that courses would then fall under. If I wanted to create a new subject, I could simply click on Action and click Add, give the subject a name, and click Save. But let's jump over to courses, because that's where I think you'll spend probably more of your time when it comes to setting these up. And instantly you can see that the courses page has a lot more information. So if we take a look at this first one here, Ancient History 1, already that's much more specific than just history. Ancient History 1 belongs to the subject of history, and it has a number of different options here. So if I double click on this, you can see what those options are. You can essentially set up you can set up what subject it would be a part of. You can change the number of credit units that it might be worth, change the grading scale, that sort of thing. These are all much more advanced options that we won't cover tonight. But as you can see, when you start setting up a course, you have a lot more options as to how you want that course to behave. But let's go ahead and just create a new course right now. So I'll just click on Action and go to Add, and let's give this course a name. I'm just going to call this Reading 1. And the course Reading 1 would belong to the subject of language arts. And I'm going to just pause right there for a second, because you probably saw that as I was typing that, this popped up that says language arts. And that's because this subject field is what we call a smart entry field. So basically what it's doing is, as I'm typing, it's searching my subject list. Remember the subject list from the Manage List section? It's searching that list for any subjects that match the text that I'm typing in. And that just is a quick way, if you could think of, if you have a list that has tens or hundreds of different items, you don't necessarily want to scroll through them, you can just quickly start typing and it'll find the item that you're looking for. Additionally, if you start with that field blank and just hit the space bar, it'll give you a full list of everything that's available. So I'm going to go ahead and choose language arts. And I will mention that smart entry field, you'll see that throughout the program. So we'll run into that a few other times as well. And then I could make this worth different number of credit units, or determine how those credits would be calculated, etc. But I'm just going to set this up with these basic settings for now and click Save. Okay, so it says added one new item, click refresh to view. So I'll just refresh, and there it is. There's my new course, Reading 1, belongs to the subject of language arts. Okay, great. So that's just a basic overview of the difference between subjects and courses. And you definitely want to set it up in that way, where you have subjects, which are really broad areas of study, and then you have more specific courses, and they could be, things like this, Reading 1, Reading 2, Reading 4, etc. Or they could be specific to your students even, right? You could call them, Dave's Reading 1 or something like that, or freshman reading. It just depends on how you want to set that up. Okay, so a few things to watch out for when creating subjects and courses. I would say don't use the exact same name for both the subject and a course. So if you had a subject called language arts, I wouldn't recommend creating a course also called language arts, because that's just going to be confusing. And again, you want the course name to be much more specific. So you would maybe call it language arts 1 or freshman language arts, belonging to the subject language arts. And then this other part here, it says a slash shows the break between subject and course. And I'll just demonstrate what that looks like real quick, because it'll make much more sense if you see it. So if I'm just going to go real quickly here to create an assignment. And here for subject course, Again, this is a smart entry field. If I hit the spacebar, it'll pull up all of my subjects and courses. And you'll notice here that this says history, and then this one says history/ancient history 1. So if you see just history, that means I would be selecting the subject of history. If you see the slash ancient history 1, that means I'm selecting the course ancient history 1, which belongs to the subject of history. So that's what that slash signifies. It just means that it's showing you the subject/course. And so, when you're looking at these within a list like that, it's just important to see that so that you don't select the wrong thing. So again, here's that course that we just created, Reading 1, belonging to the subject of language arts. You can see that right there and select it. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about assignments, because assignments are really the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. And so I like to say assignments are really the schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete. And that means basically that it's not really an appointment, it's not necessarily a chore, it relates to schoolwork, and it likely is going to be something that you're going to want to mark complete at the end of the day or at the end of the week, and you may or may not be grading it, but it's really where all of the data that you're putting into Homeschool Tracker is being aggregated and it's being collected within an assignment. And so let's take a look at how those are, where they come from and what you can do with assignments. So again, right here in the middle, assignments, the heart of all your record keeping. And assignments can come from a couple different places. So you can create assignments individually or in a series, and we'll talk about that. Or they can come from lesson plans. And so lesson plans, and we'll go into lesson plans as well, basically have lesson plan items that once they go through a scheduler become assignments. And that'll make more sense when you see it, but essentially assignments can come from either creating them individually or in a series, or they can come from a structured lesson plan that you've created in advance, or perhaps you imported it from the shared lesson plan library. And then because the assignments have all of that data in there, you can do a number of different things. So if you are grading the assignments and marking them complete, you can then generate lots of different reports like report cards and transcripts. If you have auto attendance enabled, it can generate attendance records. You can generate reports like the daily task list, which shows you and your students exactly what they need to do on a particular day. And again, because all of your data is going into assignments, all those additional reports like the resource report or the skills report, they all can come out of assignments. So, I can't stress that enough, that assignments are really the heart of all the record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. And so this is what a basic assignment entry form looks like. And we actually just saw this a few minutes ago when I was showing you the difference between subjects and courses. But essentially, each assignment requires 3 things. It requires a student, a subject course, and a date. And then, of course, there's many optional fields, which we'll cover. And you'll probably want to enter additional information in those optional fields. But at the very base level, assignments have to have a student, a subject course, and a date. And actually, let me just jump back here. I'll show you a little bit about what these different fields mean. So, for example, this is where you would select your student. This is where you would put your subject course. You can put in things like activity. That could be like a test or a quiz or a lesson. Resource can refer to an item in your library that you're designated as the resource for this assignment. PLC, stands for page, lesson, chapter. And that's where you can put information like chapter 5, page 41, that sort of thing. The directions field is a really rich text entry field where you can put lots of information or even include links to websites and that sort of thing. The date, the start and end time if you're doing start and end times, the points possible and the points earned if you're grading. You can track time spent. And then down here is these teacher complete and student complete buttons. And if you mark something complete, then a number of different things can happen if you mark them complete as a teacher. So when an assignment is marked complete by a teacher, attendance can be recorded if you're using auto attendance. The grades, that if you enter grades, will be generated. Time spent can be calculated. And from all of that information, then you can generate all of these reports like transcripts and report cards and that sort of thing. So we're going to demo this here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create single and multiple assignments. We'll add grades to them and we'll mark them complete. And we'll do that from both the calendar view and the list view. So I'm going to jump back here to Homeschool Tracker. And we're going to start in the calendar view first. So from the main menu, if I go to Agenda, Calendar View, I can go ahead and I can see my calendar. So I'll just go to this week here, October 12th. Let's just go ahead and create a new assignment. So if I just go to Add and choose Assignment Single, I get that same entry form. And so I'll go ahead and choose a student. I'm going to choose my daughter Campbell. And then I can choose a subject course. So again, this is a smart entry field. So if I hit the space bar, I can select the course that I would like. In this case, I'm going to choose Ancient History 1. And then for activity, again, this is a smart entry field, and I happen to have a number of activities already in my activities list. If I hit the space bar, I can choose the activity I want this to be, and it will be a lesson. And then resource, again, a smart entry field, and I can search here, and this is basically pulling items from my library that I've designated as a resource. I'm just going to choose that book, even though I know that doesn't quite go with ancient history. PLC, again, that's page, lesson, chapter, so I can just enter text into there if I like. And then I can choose the date. So I'm going to make this for today, October 12th, and I can choose a start and end time if I like. So I'll go ahead and do that. If I don't put in a start and end time, it'll essentially create the assignment as an all-day assignment, which just means you and your student can complete that at whatever time you like. And then I can choose points possible and earned. So I'm going to say this is worth 10 points, and I'm not going to grade it yet because it's not done yet. So that's it. Oh, and then the directions field, if I wanted to, I could put in a lot of information here. And you can see, you have rich text editing here. You can add links, add pictures, all sorts of things. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And there it is. There's my assignment, Campbell, Ancient History 1. So let's say that Monday is over and I want to go back in as a teacher and grade this assignment. I could simply click on it once. And you can get a little preview of the assignment here. I can see that's, chapter 5 in Ancient History 1. It's using this resource and it's worth 10 points. I can click on more and go back to that edit screen and change these settings however I like. But I'll show you a quick way to mark it complete and grade it. If I just click on it once and then click on this teacher check mark here, it says, looks like this one needs a grade. So let's say she got 9 out of 10. And I can click continue. Then it calculated the grade at 90% and it marked it complete by giving it that check mark. So actually, if I just click on this more, you can see that here I've got 9 out of 10. The grade is 90%, and the teacher complete box is now checked. So there it is. I've graded that assignment and I've marked it complete. And you may have also noticed that this Campbell present showed up here as well. And that's because I have auto attendance enabled. And what auto attendance does is it basically creates an attendance record anytime an assignment is marked complete on a given day for that student. And so it's basically just assuming that because you marked an assignment complete, that means you had school that day. And so I'm going to go ahead and create an attendance record. You can obviously turn that off if you don't want that, and you could create attendance records on your own manually, or you can even adjust the amount of attendance that it's recording, whether it be an all-day or half-day attendance record, based on the number of assignments that you're marking complete. So that's real quick how you would create a single assignment in the calendar view. And just to talk a little bit about workflows for a second, many people do this on a day-to-day basis, where you could essentially go in the night before, the morning of your day, and just create single assignments for your day, put them in there, show your student what they need to work on, and then at the end of the day, go in and mark them all complete and give them grades, and you're set. Additionally, you could, if you are perhaps more of an unschooler or you don't necessarily plan out your day in advance, you could go in at the end of the day and essentially log all of the activity that you did for that day, give those assignments information like we did, even give them grades and mark them complete. And then Homeschool Tracker really becomes a record-keeping tool, and it logs all of your information versus being more of a planning tool. And it could do both. It really just depends on how you want to use the program. So we've seen folks do it all sorts of different ways, but just to give you a few ideas of what you can do within Homeschool Tracker. So I want to show you real quick what this looks like in the agenda list view. So I'm going to jump over to the list view. And the list view is very similar to the calendar view, except that it's showing you all of that same information in a list format. And so here's that assignment that we just created for Campbell. Ancient History 1 from 11 to 12 p.m. And if I double click on it, I get the same sort of edit settings here. And then this is the attendance record that it created when I marked that complete for Campbell. So just to show you that you can work in either the list view or in the calendar view. It's really up to you. I'm going to jump back to the calendar view real quick and show you how to add multiple assignments all at once. So if I go to click Add and choose Assignment Multiple, I'm presented with essentially a wizard for creating multiple assignments at once. And so these different tabs up here, Students and Details, Day and Date, Page, Lesson, Chapter, these are basically a sequence that I can go through to then create multiple assignments all at once. So first off, I can select which students I want to create these for, which is a nice feature because you can create assignments for multiple students at once. I'm going to just create them for Campbell right now. And I can choose a subject course. So I'll choose Ancient History. And this will be a lesson. And we'll use that same resource. I want these all to happen also from 11 to 12. And they'll be worth 10 points. And then I can click Continue to Day and Date, which basically just takes me to this next tab here. And this allows me to set up how often I want this assignment to occur. So I'll say I want it to happen every day, and I want it to start on the 13th, since I already created one assignment for today. And then I can say, do I want to continue creating items until an end date, or do I want to continue creating items until PLC pattern is exhausted? I'm going to choose this option, and I'll explain what that means. So when I continue to PLC, if you remember what PLC stands for, it's Page, Lesson, Chapter. The nice thing about when you create multiple assignments at once is that you can use our auto increment function to basically take that Page, Lesson, Chapter field and have it increment in a number of different ways as it's creating multiple assignments. So for example, if your first assignment is for Chapter 1, your second assignment might be for Chapter 2. And so it can automatically increment to go from Chapter 1 to Chapter 2, Chapter 3, etc. if you set it up right here. So I'm going to choose a one-part auto increment. And I'm going to say my leading text here is going to say Chapter. And I'll start with Chapter 2. And I'll end with Chapter 5 and increment by 1. And so if I choose to click a sample here, I can see what that looks like. Chapter 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to create 4 assignments for me, starting with Chapter 2 and ending with Chapter 5, starting on tomorrow. So if I click Continue to Preview, I can get a preview of what that looks like. So here's the first assignment, Chapter 2, the second assignment, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5. And again, this is just a preview. I haven't created these yet. It just gives you a quick way to see, to make sure that this is actually what you want to create. I can always jump back to any one of these tabs to tweak this, to change it however I want. You can also do a 2-part auto increment. So if you wanted to do Chapter 1, Lesson 1, Chapter 1, Lesson 2, etc., you could do that. You can even go all the way up to a 3-part auto increment and do things like this, where it's lesson 1.a.9, for example. But I'm going to stick with this 1-part auto increment just to keep things simple for now. And I'll go back to that preview. So once I like what I see here, I can select all these and choose Accept Selected Items. Okay, great. So now you can see that I've created those 4 assignments here all at one go for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And if I look at them, this one's Chapter 2. And then if I go to this last one, this one's Chapter 5. So you can see how it automatically incremented from 2, 3, 4, 5. And so again, this is certainly a workflow that a lot of folks do, where perhaps at the beginning of the week, they might create all of their assignments for their week, perhaps using the Add Multiple tool. And then at the end of the week or at the end of each day, you can go in and mark those complete and give them grades. Definitely a totally acceptable workflow. But I want to show you again what this looks like in the list view. So if I jump back to the list view, you can see I have more assignments here. So this was that first one that we created, and then these were those 4 that we just created here. The other nice thing about the list view is that you can edit multiple assignments all at once. So obviously from the calendar view, you can only edit one assignment at a time because you can click only on one at a time. But from the list view, you can select more than one item at once. So if I wanted to select, for example, let's see here, all 4 of these items, I could go to Action, Multi-Edit, and I could change a number of different parameters here. So let's say I actually wanted them to all start at 10 a.m. and end at 11 a.m. I could do that and hit save, and now they would all be adjusted. So now they all start at 10 and end at 11. So a really quick way to edit more than one item at a time is from the list view, selecting them and choosing Action, Multi-Edit. Additionally, I could select them from here and choose Action, Mark as Complete. So I could mark these all complete at the same time. And it just did that. And as you can see, it also created attendance records for all of them all at once as well. So the list view is really a powerful way to affect more than one item at once. And I'll show you this real quick. It allows you to do lots of different sorting and grouping within this view. So for example, if I wanted to sort by date, I could just click on this date column. And right now I'm sorting ascending by date. If I wanted to sort descending by date, I could do that. Additionally, I could sort by anything in here. So if I wanted to sort by description, I could turn this off and sort by description that way. And I will say that you can actually have more than one sort turned on, which could certainly be what you're looking for. But if you're ever confused because it's not showing the way that you prefer, just take a look at these little arrows here and make sure that you clear those. So if I just keep clicking on this column till that arrow goes away, and again here, then it'll kind of reset itself back to normal. Additionally, you can group by columns. So for example, if I wanted to group all the attendance records together and all the assignments together, I could just take this type column and just drag it up here, and now it'll group by those types. And you can collapse these groupings so that you can just look at the things that you want to work on at a given time. And this is really helpful, especially if you have multiple students. You could group by student and then quickly, open and close to see Campbell's assignments, and then, for example, my other students' assignments if I had more than one student here at a time. So really powerful grouping and sorting tools here. There's also a search field here. So, I could type in here to search for specific items. And so I typed in present, and obviously that just pulled up the attendance records. To clear a search, you can just simply click on the search present here, and that'll clear the search. Additionally, from the list view, you have a number of filters here on the left side. So right here is my date range filter. I'm looking at this week right now. If I wanted to look at next week, I could pull that up, and it would pull up next week. You could put in custom dates here as well. You can choose which students you like to view, the types of items that you want to view, the completion status for items, and then even drill down to specific subjects and courses. So lots of different filtering and sorting and grouping tools here in the list view. And additionally, in the calendar view, you have some different filters as well, and they're up here at the top. So again, you can choose which students you want to view, what types of items you want to view, the completion status, and then again, the subject and course that you want to view. And so right now I'm viewing all so that I just see everything all at once. But as you can imagine, if you have 5, 6 students and you're viewing everything at once, it could get a little crowded. So you may want to start using those filters to just view the things that you're interested in. Okay, great. So just to recap, we showed you how to create single and multiple assignments, how to add grades and mark those complete. And we did that both from the calendar view and the list view. So now we're going to jump into lesson plans. And lesson plans are basically, they're a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. So if you remember, assignments required a student, a subject course, and a date. And then it had a number of optional fields. Well, lesson plan items basically have all those optional fields, but they don't have a student and they don't have a date yet, because essentially they're just a sequence of items. And once you want to schedule them, that's when you give them a date, and that's when you give them a student. And so this is really nice if you want to plan out everything in detail all at once, perhaps at the beginning of the year, or even now, for example, or if you have a predefined curriculum. So if you're using an off-the-shelf curriculum that maybe you purchased from a publisher, they might have a lesson plan that comes with it that you might want to follow. And that's where you could basically take that and put that into Homeschool Tracker to then use that lesson plan and schedule it accordingly based off of you and your students' needs. And because it's not tied to a particular student, that also means that it can be reused over and over again throughout your school career. So, for example, if you have a student that is working on a lesson plan for freshman biology, when your younger students are ready for that course, you can simply reuse that same lesson plan and not have to duplicate assignments or track down your previous students' work. And the other nice thing is these lesson plans can be shared and imported using our shared lesson plan library. And there are hundreds of lesson plans in there, and a lot of them are based off of off-the-shelf curriculum. So probably the best way to learn about lesson plans is to demo them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to see an example lesson plan. Then we'll create a simple lesson plan. We'll import a plan from the shared lesson plan library. And then we'll talk about how to schedule those plans to then basically create assignments from them. So let's go ahead and take a look at a sample lesson plan. If I jump back to Homeschool Tracker and go to the lesson plan screen from the schedules and planning section of the menu. If this is your first time here, you'll see this little pop-up, which basically just describes the same thing that we just talked about. And first off, you might notice that this lesson plan screen looks a lot like the agenda list view. And you'll see the same kind of list paradigm throughout the program, where essentially you have data here in the middle, you have filters here on the left, and then you have grouping and sorting tools right here in a search box. But right now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load up a sample lesson plan so that you can see what they look like. So if I click on lesson plan here, and again, this is a smart entry field, so if I hit the space bar, I can see all of my lesson plans. If this is your first time in the lesson plan screen, you obviously won't have any lesson plans in there, but I just want to show you an example here. So I'm going to load up this Abeka Arithmetic First Grade lesson plan. And here it is. So it looks a lot like a sequence of assignments, except that you'll notice that there's no date and there's no student. Instead, you have what's called a day number. And essentially the day number just basically says on day 1 of this lesson plan, we're going to do this. On day 2 of this lesson plan, we'll do this. On day 3, etc. And if I open one of these, you'll see that it looks a lot like an assignment, but again, no date and no student. But you do have subject course, you have the activity, resources, etc. So that all exists within the lesson plan item. But let's just take a look at what this lesson plan looks like. You can see that the PLC over here is incrementing from lesson 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. And it looks like they do about 11 lessons here for the first 11 days of the plan. And then on day 12, they have a test, an oral test. And they actually have 2 items on day 12, an oral test and also a written test. And those are both worth 100 points. And then this sequence of items continues, a few more lessons and then another set of tests, and so on and so forth. And you can see if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, there are 171 days worth of items here, 202 total items. So really an entire year's curriculum for arithmetic is all right here in this lesson plan. So pretty cool that you can essentially have the lesson plan all kind of planned out for you essentially. And you're not tied to day 1 happening tomorrow yet, because we haven't scheduled this yet. So it really gives you that flexibility to, as homeschoolers, that we really love, where, if we want to take a day off, or if we want to do a 4-day week or a 3-day week or whatever it might be, we can do that. And we're not tied to a specific schedule, because these lesson plans are set up in a way where, as long as we know what day number we're on, which I'll show you how that works, we just know when we need to start working on the following day, and we can schedule it accordingly. So this is what a sample lesson plan looks like. But let's go ahead and create our own simple plan. I'll go ahead and click Add Multiple. And again, this looks a lot like when we created multiple assignments, right? The same sort of wizard here. And when I do that, it defaults to the plan that I'm currently looking at, because it's thinking that I want to add more items to that plan. But actually what I want to do is create a new plan. So I can just delete that and choose a name for it. Let's call it sample plan. And then I can give it a subject course. So let's do Ancient History 1. And let's create some lessons. And we'll select a resource. And let's make these worth 10 points each. And then I'll continue to day numbers. And so I'm going to start on day 1, and I'm going to increment by 1. And then I'll go to PLC. And then again, I have those auto increment functions here. So I'm going to choose lesson, and I'll say start with 1, end with 10. So we'll keep it really simple. And then I'll go ahead to continue to preview. So here we go. I've just created, well, again, this is just a preview. I haven't created it yet, but here's a preview of my lesson plan so far. 10 items, 10 days, PLC lesson 1 through 10. So pretty simple. I'll go ahead and select all and choose accept selected items. And then I need to go ahead and load up that plan that I just created. It was called sample plan. And there we go. So now I have a basic lesson plan, 10 days, 10 lessons. Let's say I wanted to add a test at the end of this, though, on day 11. I can just choose add, and I can choose add single. And again, this is for Ancient History 1, and this will be a test. And we'll say it's worth 100 points. And I'll click save. And so here it is up here. You can see that it actually went to the top because it's set to day number 0. But I want it on day 11, so I'll just jump back in there and I'll update this to day 11 and click save. So there you go. Now I have 10 days worth of lessons and then a test on day 11. And you could certainly keep doing this pattern. So if I wanted to add another 10 days of lessons, I could go add multiple and create another 10 lessons, that sort of thing. And you could do that for all 180 days, perhaps, if you wanted to. There are some techniques to make this process more efficient if you are creating hundreds of items for your lesson plan. We cover that in great detail in that lesson planning webinar that we did last week. So definitely, if lesson plans are of interest to you, I would highly recommend checking out the replay of that. Again, that is on our website at, whoops. I'll just jump to the homepage here to show you. If you go to Support Training Center, we have the lesson planning webinar replay. And we'll probably do another one. So keep an eye out in the upcoming events for another one. But definitely, if lesson planning is of interest to you, I would highly recommend watching that webinar because we go into specifics on how to create much more complicated, or maybe not complicated, much more complex lesson plans than this simple plan here. But I just want to show you real quickly how you can use these tools to add single or add multiple lesson plan items rather quickly to generate your lesson plan. Okay, but I also want to show you how to import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library. So if I jump back here and go to the menu to shared lesson plans, you can see the lesson plans in our shared library. If you just enter a blank search in here and click go, it'll load up all of the lesson plans in the shared lesson plan library. And you can see that there are literally hundreds of lesson plans here in this library. A lot of them are based off of popular off-the-shelf curriculum created by users just like you. So what we can do is we can actually search in here. So I'm just going to search for reading. And I can see different reading lesson plans that folks have shared. And I'm going to choose this Usborne First Reading Level 1 plan. And just click on that. And I get a preview of what the plan is. And so it looks like this plan has 15 days and resources attached to it, PLC. So somebody took the time to create this plan, and it looks great. So I want to use it. So I'll go ahead and prepare this for import. And this will get it all set up for me to bring it into my account. So I just need to give it a new name for when I want to bring it in. So I'll just call it Reading 1. And I can go ahead and select the items that I want to import. But one thing I want to do before I do that is just kind of preview it again, just to make sure that it kind of matches up with what I want in my account. And if I take a look here, I notice something right off the bat. Subject and course, it just has language arts as the subject. And I actually want it to be in the course Reading 1. Now, I could just import this and change it after the fact, but I can also change it right now. So if I just choose Action, Multi-Edit, I'm going to change the subject course to Language Arts Reading 1. If you remember, that's the course that we created earlier. during this session. So I'm going to choose reading 1 and hit save, and that just updated there. And then if you notice here too, under resource, you see this asterisk and new. That basically means that this is a new resource that I don't have currently in my library. And so when it imports it, it's actually going to create it for me. And that's just to give you a heads up that those will be added to your library. It would show that for other items as well if I didn't have them. But otherwise, this looks good. I have them all selected, so I'll just choose Accept Selected Items. I'll go ahead and bring that in. Great. So now I'm back here in my account, and you'll see that I have this lesson plan ready to go, and I can go ahead and use it for my students. So that's just a quick way to show you how you can import a lesson plan into your account. And again, there's literally hundreds of them in that library, so feel free to take a look to see if there's any that might work for you. Okay, so now I want to talk about how we schedule these lesson plans. So if I jump back here, probably the simplest way to schedule is right here from the lesson plan screen. So let's say, for example, I wanted to schedule the first 5 days of this reading lesson plan. Just open this up so you can see. So I could go ahead and just select the first 5 days and choose Action Scheduler. And I could choose which students I want to schedule it for. I'm going to choose Campbell, and I'll continue to day and date. And then again, this looks a lot like when you're creating multiple assignments. I can choose my day and date options. I want it to happen every day, and I'll have it start today. And I can set a start time and end time. I'll do 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And I can choose to continue to an end date or until all the selected lesson plan items are used. I selected 5 days, so if I'm scheduling them every day, it should schedule it for that whole week. So I'll go ahead and continue to preview, and I can see a preview of it. And so now this is, again, it's just a preview, but this is where these lesson plan items are becoming assignments, right? Because if you remember, lesson plan items don't have a student and they don't have a date. But now that I'm running it through the scheduler, it's adding a student and it's adding a date to these items. So once I go ahead and select these and choose Accept Selected Items, they will then go ahead and be assignments that will be on Campbell's agenda. So I'm just going to take a look at this, and it all looks good. Have them selected, and I'll choose Accept Selected Items. Great. So now if I go to my agenda, you should see that I have 5 assignments for this week, and they're all from that lesson plan. So this is the first one, this is the second one, and so on. And so I've essentially taken that lesson plan, and actually a few minutes ago, it wasn't even my lesson plan, I imported it. And I took the first 5 days and scheduled them for Campbell's week. So you can see how, if you had your lesson plans created, you could quickly set up your students' entire week with just a few clicks. And we do recommend only scheduling 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. There's this temptation to basically create a lesson plan or create multiple assignments and schedule out your entire year all up front. But that really actually limits you when it comes to rescheduling, because if I wanted to reschedule this, which we'll talk about in a second, I'd only have to worry about 5 assignments here. But if I've scheduled the entire year, now I have to essentially push forward hundreds, if not thousands, of assignments. So it's really nice just to have a manageable chunk of your calendar scheduled, whether it be 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. So that's how you would schedule directly from the lesson plan screen. But I also want to show you how to schedule using a more powerful scheduler. And so if we jump over here to the lesson plans and presets page, what we can do is we can use the scheduler here, and it will allow you to schedule multiple lesson plans at once. So I'm going to choose Campbell here. And this section of the site does take a little bit longer to load, because essentially it's looking at all of your lesson plans and it's pulling them all in at once for your student, but that wasn't so bad. So here I can see all of the lesson plans that I currently have active for Campbell. And what I want to do is I want to add that reading plan that we just imported. So I'll just choose Edit. And it'll present me with all of the available lesson plans that I have in my account. And I'll go ahead and add this Reading 1 lesson plan to Campbell. And then I'm going to jump to this button here that says Preset. And what presets are, if you look at this, it actually looks a lot like a calendar, right? Like the agenda calendar view. But actually what they are they are preset times that I can set up where I want specific courses to occur throughout my week. And when the scheduler runs, and if I select to use the presets, the scheduler will take my lesson plans and it'll match up the courses for those lesson plan items with the preset times that I've already designated. So you can see, for example, Monday through Friday, she has Ancient History 1 from 9 to 10 a.m. Then she has spelling from 10 to 11, and then arithmetic on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, grammar on Tuesday and Thursday, and then physical science, and then math 6. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and create a new preset. So I'm going to create a preset for that Reading 1 course right here. And let's say we're going to have it happen Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. Actually, no, I'll just have it happen every day from 3 to 4. And there we go. Now I've created a preset for Language Arts Reading 1, Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. So if I go to the scheduler now, what I can do is I can select all of the lesson plans that I'd like to schedule all at once. So I'm just going to keep all these checked here. I'm pretty sure I have a preset for all of them. And I'll go ahead and continue to day and date. So basically this is giving me the option to select which lesson plans I want to schedule right now for Campbell. And so I'll go ahead and keep those all selected and go to continue to day and date. And normally, as you've probably noticed, we've been choosing daily, or you could choose like a weekly option or monthly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this option here, which says preset, and I'm going to choose a start date. I'm going to choose next Monday since we've already scheduled a lot of things for this week. And I'm going to continue until an end date. So let's say I wanted to schedule just next week. So I'd have it start on the 19th and I'll end on the 23rd. And I'll hit continue to preview. And so now you can see that we're viewing 45 items. So these will be 45 assignments that the scheduler is going to create for me. And if we take a look, we have Ancient History 1 from 9 to 10 on Monday. And let's look here. Oh, here's Reading 1 from 3 to 4. That's that preset we just created. And if we go down a little bit further, we'll probably find another one on Tuesday from 3 to 4. So you can see with just a few clicks, I'm about to create 45 assignments from all of my different lesson plans at all these very specific times because I have those presets set up. So let's go ahead and just select all these and choose Accept Selected Items. And so now it's going to add all 45 of those to Campbell's agenda for next week. Okay, that's going to load that back up. And before I jump to the agenda to show you what that looks like, you can see here, each one of these lesson plans shows you the total number of items in that plan, and then the total number of remaining items based off of how many we've already scheduled. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But let me go to the calendar view. And remember, this was this week where we scheduled those one at a time. But if I go to next week, boom, you can see all of these assignments are ready to go for Campbell. So she's got Ancient History 1 like we saw, and then she has spelling. And she actually has 2 assignments for spelling because that lesson plan has 2 assignments per day. And then here are the Reading 1 assignments down here. And they're all ready to go. And again, from the list view, if I jump to the list view and I select next week, you can see all of her assignments here are ready to go. And again, this is where, so now we're looking at 45 items where the grouping and sorting can really help out. So for example, if I wanted to group and sort group by description, I could group by subject course essentially right here. So it just shows you how you can quickly just see, okay, what does Campbell have next week for Reading 1? Open all those and just look at that. Or if I wanted to just edit those items, I could do that. So this is definitely a workflow that a lot of folks use, where essentially you can create lesson plans for all of your courses. And each week, say for example on a Sunday night, you can log in and go to the lesson plans and presets page and schedule all of your students for all of their lesson plans for the entire week, just in a few minutes, essentially. And then you're ready to go for that week. And then at the end of the week or at the end of each day, you could go in and grade and mark those assignments as complete, and you're good to go. So definitely a great workflow if you're definitely more of a planner and want to create all those lesson plans. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about reports. So as we mentioned at the beginning, reports are PDFs that you can save, print, or send. And the daily task list, which is one we'll show you how to create, is a great report that you can use on a day-to-day basis, where you can see all of the assignments or appointments that your student may have on a specific day. And then transcripts and report cards, these can be generated as long as you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course over that time period. We're not going to get too deep into transcripts and report cards tonight, but we probably will do a specific training session just on transcripts and report cards when we get closer to the end of, the middle of the school year, and then again at the end of the school year. But let's jump over here and look at the daily task list. Daily task list. So if I go to my reports and choose daily task list, I am presented with a number of options here. So I'm going to pull this report for Campbell for all subjects, and I can choose a date range. Let's choose that following week here. And I can choose what I want to include on that report. I'll just keep this all the same. So if I click on Generate Report and then Pick Up Report, it essentially saves a PDF file to my Downloads folder. And so this is Campbell's daily task list for next week. And so you can see on Monday, these are all the assignments that she has to do on Monday with their times and additional information like, what book and what pages and PLC and that sort of thing. And then Tuesday, and then Wednesday, and so on. So for the entire week. And then it has this little checkbox here too. If you wanted to print this out, put it on a clipboard or, put it on the wall, whatever. It's just a handy little thing there where you can check things off as you go. But it's a nice kind of hard copy that you can work off of throughout the week if you don't want to have your computer open to reference things. It's certainly a great tool to use on a day-to-day basis if that's what you'd like to use. So that's the daily task list. Okay, so let's jump over here and talk about workflows again. So, we discussed these workflows throughout the session tonight, but just to recap, you absolutely can create and complete single assignments on a daily basis. And I know a lot of users do this where essentially every morning or every night before they go in, they create the assignments for the following day and then mark them complete or give them grades at the end of the day. And then again, you can do that in reverse. If you don't necessarily want to plan out your whole day, you can just go about your day and teach and learn the way that you normally would. And then at the end of the day, kind of look back and reflect on what you did and go log into Homeschool Tracker and just log all of the assignments that you did do, add grades and everything like that. And then you'll have all of those great records in Homeschool Tracker to then generate a report card or transcript at the end of the year. So it can work both directions like that. And a lot of people do that. And they can also do it by adding multiple assignments. If you wanted to do that for an entire week at a time and go through that same workflow, that certainly helps. And then the lesson plan workflow that we just went over is also a really popular one where you can create lesson plans for specific courses. You don't have to do it for all your courses, but let's say you did. And then you could schedule all of your students 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. And you can do that with just a few clicks, as you saw, to generate all those assignments up front. And again, I would stress to only schedule 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. So it just makes things a little bit easier and gives you more flexibility if you want to change things up down the road. All right, so we do have some time for questions. So feel free to submit any questions you might have. Before we jump to those questions, I will spend just a second to talk about rescheduling, because this is a question that comes up pretty often. So I'm going to go back here to the calendar view. And so let's say, and this is bound to happen, right? You want to reschedule something. The quickest and easiest way to reschedule something from the calendar view is simply just to click and drag it, to move it, right? So if I wanted to move this from Monday to Tuesday, boom, just did it. Or if I wanted to even change the duration of it, I could do that as well. But that only works well if you're moving one or two things. If I wanted to move this entire week forward, you're probably not going to be able to do that from the calendar view. So if you wanted to do something like that, you would want to jump over to the list view. So I'm going to clear this here. And there's a number of scenarios that could happen, right, when you're rescheduling. So for example, let's say we had relatives come into town on this Monday, the 19th. And so we wanted to take an impromptu day off and just hang out with family. Well, in that situation, I'd probably want to just take all of my assignments that I have on Campbell's agenda and just move them forward an entire day so that we take the whole day off and then we don't lose our place on where we're working. So what I would do is I would just load up here in the list view all of the assignments that she has. And I can just choose select all and then go to action, reschedule. And basically, they currently have a start date of the 19th. I'm just going to move that to the 20th because we're going to take Monday off, and then we're just going to start back up on Tuesday as if nothing ever happened. And I'll just continue until all items are moved. So I'll go to continue to preview. And you can see here in this preview that the existing date, Monday, will now have a new date of Tuesday. Existing date of Tuesday will have a new date of Wednesday, and so on. So all 43, I believe, of those assignments will get pushed forward by one day. So I can just hit select all and choose accept selected items. And there you go. So now, and then this might be easier to view on the calendar view. Now we have Tuesday totally clear and everything is pushed forward one day. And if I go to the following week, you'll see that we have now assignments already set up for Monday. So that's how you would do that if you wanted to push everything forward. You would just select all the items and then move them forward however many days you like. But let's say, for example, our relatives stayed an extra day. They stayed on Tuesday as well, and we wanted to spend time with them. But rather than push things forward another day, we don't want to get too far behind. So we want to essentially have Campbell catch up on Wednesday. So what we want to do is we want to take all these assignments on Tuesday, and we want to double them up for Wednesday. Well, we can certainly do that again from the list view. If I go ahead and I select all of the items for Tuesday for 10/20 right there and choose action, reschedule. I just want to move these to the 21st and I'll continue to preview. And so now the existing date, Tuesday, will have a new date of Wednesday. And down here in green, it shows items that already are on Wednesday to show you essentially over here it says existing item. And that just shows you any potential conflicts that you might have because Campbell already has items on Wednesday. And we knew that was going to happen, so that's fine. So we'll just choose select all and then choose accept selected items. And so now if we look at the calendar view, you can see that Campbell has basically twice as much work on Wednesday, but now we won't fall behind. So those are really the two most common rescheduling scenarios that come up, either pushing everything forward an entire day or two or however many, or just pushing some material forward and essentially doubling up the work. And again, this shows you, I think, how important it is to just schedule a week or two at a time, because you can see how, with family just coming into town for a day or two, we've already had to move a number of items forward. And you can only imagine if you had your entire year scheduled, that then essentially you would have to move not just 43 items, you'd have to move probably thousands of items. And so it's just easier to manage if you only have a few weeks planned out, or scheduled, if you do need to reschedule. Okay, great. So let's see if there's any questions coming in. Again, feel free to ask questions by clicking on that Q&A button in your viewer, and you can go ahead and submit a question to me. I'll be more than happy to answer it. And again, too, if you do have any questions after the fact, you can always email us at support@homeschooltracker.com. And again, we really try to respond to each and every email within 1 to 2 business days. I didn't mention this earlier, but if you don't hear from us via email, there is a chance that perhaps we didn't get your message. It could have gotten lost in our spam folder or didn't get delivered to us for whatever reason. Feel free to send it again because we do absolutely respond to each and every email. So if you don't get a response from us, it's likely that we just didn't receive it for some reason. But definitely don't hesitate to reach out. I don't see any questions coming in, so I think we'll just go ahead and wrap up. I just want to say thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we will be sending each and every one of you that registered a recording of this, a link to the recording. We're also going to send you a survey. And in that survey, we're just going to ask you a few questions about this webinar, get your feedback. We'd love to learn more from you about how we could do this better. Or if you have any ideas for future webinar topics, we're happy to hear those as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We absolutely appreciate it, and we hope to see you again soon. Good night.